My girlfriend told me she had a business trip out of town for the weekend. Just 2 days later, my buddy faced a family emergency, and I wound up completing the final Uber Eats delivery on his route for him. The door swung open at an address all too familiar, right here in the city, and there she stood, draped in his shirt. Grace, that was her name. We'd been a couple for 2 years. She'd been living in my apartment for the past one. On the surface, everything seemed fine, but beneath it all, there existed this persistent undercurrent of anxiety with her. This gnawing feeling that I was perpetually being measured against some invisible benchmark. Appearances consumed her, the right people, the right restaurants, the right everything. I constantly felt more like a component in the perfect life she was constructing, rather than a true partner. These last few months, she'd grown distant, perpetually glued to her phone with this little smirk playing across her face, one I had no part in. Last Thursday, she arrived home bearing big news. Her company was dispatching her on a mandatory leadership retreat. The location was a city roughly 3 hours away, and she'd be absent from Friday morning straight through Sunday night. She portrayed it as this monumental occasion, a pivotal advancement for her career. She even presented me with the brochure for the conference center, a luxurious place boasting golf courses and a spa. Everything appeared legitimate, so I assumed the role of the supportive boyfriend. I assisted her with packing, encouraged her to have an amazing time, and kissed her farewell Friday morning as she rolled her suitcase through the door. After she departed, the apartment felt eerily quiet and hollow. A strange sensation churned in my gut, this low rumble of suspicion I couldn't quite identify, but I convinced myself I was simply being paranoid. I possessed no legitimate reason to distrust her, correct? Friday night I spent just unwinding, a movie playing, savoring the space. Come Saturday, I was attempting to determine what to do with my time when Dave, my best friend, called. Dave maintains a regular 9 to 5 throughout the week, but weekends find him doing Uber Eats to accelerate paying off those student loans. He was midway through a route and bored beyond belief. He asked whether I'd want to ride along with him for a few hours just to hang out and provide some company. Nothing better occupied my schedule, so I accepted. It certainly beat sitting alone in my silent apartment, dwelling on Grace's business trip. The next several hours we spent cruising around, music blasting, talking trash the way we always do. A perfectly ordinary, unremarkable Saturday afternoon. We were on the final delivery of a dinner rush when Dave's phone erupted. His sister was calling. His mom had slipped and taken a fall, and they were rushing to the emergency room. Nothing life-threatening, but she was experiencing significant pain, and he needed to arrive there immediately. Panic consumed him instantly. He yanked the car over, his complexion turning pale. "Man, I have to go," he uttered, trembling slightly. "But I've got this last order. The customer's been waiting for it. I can't just abandon it." His eyes found mine, pleading desperately. "Could you do me this massive favor and drop this off? The address is only like 10 minutes from here. I'll owe you enormously." "Of course, man," I responded without hesitation. "Don't even think about it. Go be with your mom." He expressed his gratitude, leaped from the car, and bolted down the street to flag a taxi. I slid behind the wheel of his beat-up sedan, the lingering aroma of 100 different meals saturating the air. I seized his phone. He maintains 2 phones, one dedicated exclusively to Uber Eats. Examined the Uber Eats app and programmed the address into my GPS. The name attached to the order read simply Alex. The address belonged to one of those new high-rise condo buildings downtown, one of those flashy glass towers that had only recently been completed a few months prior. I recognized the street. It wasn't distant from my workplace. I assumed it would be a swift and effortless drop-off. I located the building, parked illegally for just a moment, and retrieved the sealed paper bag from the passenger seat. The concierge stationed in the lobby directed me toward the elevators, and I ascended to the 27th floor. I located the apartment and pressed the doorbell. Music drifted from inside. I stood there momentarily, adjusting the bag in my grip, prepared to execute the standard polite handoff and return to Dave's car. The door swung wide, and my entire world tilted violently on its axis. Grace stood there, my Grace, the girlfriend who should have been 3 hours distant, at a leadership retreat. She wore a man's oversized wrinkled blue button-down shirt, unbuttoned just enough to reveal she had absolutely nothing on underneath. Her hair was disheveled, the kind of chaos that materializes when you've been in bed all day. For one split second, recognition escaped her. She merely registered a delivery guy. Then her eyes sharpened and every trace of color evacuated her face. Behind her position, a guy strolled into the doorway, shirtless, working a towel through his wet hair. Tall, athletic, radiating smugness across his features. I'd encountered him once or twice previously in photographs she'd shared with me. Alex, her friend from college, the one she'd perpetually characterized as being like a brother to her. The one I'd met fleetingly at a party a year ago and immediately despised. He'd barely registered my existence. The three of us froze there in this triangle of shock and betrayal. But Grace's shock transformed into something else first, something hideous. Her expression contorted, not with guilt, but with revulsion, at me. "What the hell are you doing here?" she hissed venomously. "Why are you doing Uber Eats delivery? I am so ashamed of you." And just like that, something within me fractured. The hurt, the bewilderment, it all incinerated in a flash of white-hot fury. My gaze traveled from her in another man's shirt, to the bag clutched in my hand, to the smug, half-naked guy positioned behind her. Ashamed of me, I released the bag of food. It struck the marble floor of the hallway with a wet, heavy thud. "Ashamed of me," I bellowed, allowing my voice to reverberate through the quiet hallway. "You're supposed to be at a business conference, you lying, cheating piece of trash." Alex, the brother, finally interjected, advancing forward. Whoa, man, who are you?" he questioned, positioning a protective hand on Grace's arm. I erupted in laughter, harsh, devoid of any humor. "I'm her boyfriend, the guy she lives with in the apartment you've probably heard endless stories about. Who the hell are you?" Alex's smug demeanor dissolved into pure confusion. He glanced down at Grace, his grip on her arm intensifying. "Boyfriend? What is he talking about? You told me you broke up with your ex months ago. You said he was a psycho who wouldn't leave you alone." He looked back toward me, a flicker of recognition igniting in his eyes. "Wait, you're Jake? She told me you were stalking her." The world ceased spinning and snapped into sharp, brutal focus. The deception ran deeper than I could have possibly imagined. I wasn't merely the oblivious boyfriend. I'd become the deranged stalker ex in whatever narrative she was feeding him. I advanced a step closer to them both. "So I'm the crazy ex now," I stated, maintaining my voice at a low register, so they understood I meant absolute business. "Is that what occupied your thoughts when you used my credit card to book your flight to this conference? Is that what you were thinking when you whispered you loved me before you departed?" Grace began stammering, her eyes ricocheting between us, frantically. It's not what it looks like." "Oh, it looks precisely like what it is," Alex roared, pivoting toward her. He was betrayed too, and his rage burned just as raw as mine. You've been playing me this entire time, exploiting my apartment, claiming you're single, allowing me to believe we were initiating something genuine, all while maintaining a live-in boyfriend. What is wrong with you? She dissolved into tears then, the classic predictable defense mechanism. I was confused, she sobbed pathetically, her gaze shifting from me to him. I didn't know what to do. I love you both. You don't love anyone but yourself, I spit out. Never in my entire existence had I felt such profound disgust for another human being. The confrontation devolved into something messy, deafening, and brutally public in that sterile apartment hallway. Doors throughout the floor were undoubtedly cracking open as neighbors eavesdropped on our chaos. I didn't care remotely. Finally, her tears evaporated, supplanted by desperate panic. She looked between both of us, her face streaked grotesquely with mascara. Where am I supposed to go now? She whimpered pathetically, the ultimate question from a person who has exhausted all options and expects someone else to furnish a new one. I observed her, standing there draped in another man's shirt, the physical embodiment of her own deceit. I don't care, I stated flatly, emotionlessly. But you have until noon tomorrow to remove every last one of your belongings from my apartment. If it's not gone by then, it's heading to the curb. She redirected her hopeful, tear-filled eyes toward Alex. He simply shook his head in absolute disgust. You are definitely not staying here, he declared. I want you out of my apartment now. He reached behind him, seized her purse from a nearby table, and hurled it into the hallway. Then he looked at me, then back at her, and slammed the door with finality, abandoning her alone in the hallway with nothing but her lies. I refused to linger and observe the fallout. I simply pivoted and walked away, leaving her standing there surrounded by the wreckage she'd single-handedly created. I never looked back. The rage still coursed through me, but it was being displaced by this chilling sense of purpose. This transcended a simple breakup. This was an eviction. I returned to Dave's car, my hands trembling violently with adrenaline. I called him, recounted everything that transpired. He was absolutely floored. He instructed me to take his car, go home, and do whatever I needed to do. The very first action I took upon returning to my apartment was changing the locks. By 10 that night, every single lock on my door was brand new. Her key had become nothing more than a useless piece of metal. Then I commenced packing, but I exercised no care whatsoever. I bypassed her fancy suitcases entirely. I went straight to the closet, where we maintained a stash of heavy-duty black trash bags. I extracted them and began systematically purging her existence from my life. Clothes, shoes, makeup, books, everything was thrown into the bags. I operated like a machine, propelled by cold, methodical fury. By 2 a.m., her side of the closet stood completely empty. Her drawers were barren. The bathroom counter was cleared of her endless bottles and jars. It resembled she had never existed there at all. I accumulated all 30-some bags near the front door. Her calls and texts had initiated around 9 that evening, an endless onslaught of frantic messages. I refused to answer a single one. I simply allowed my phone to buzz itself into eventual silence. Then came the emails, long, rambling pleas and accusations. I deleted them without bothering to read them. She materialized at the apartment around midnight, precisely as I was securing the final bag. My doorbell camera dispatched a notification to my phone. I observed the live feed as she attempted her key, her confusion morphing into panic, then escalating into rage. She began pounding on the door, screaming my name desperately. I simply remained seated on my couch in the darkness, watching this silent movie of her complete meltdown. After 20 minutes, she finally surrendered and collapsed down in the hallway, a defeated, crumpled heap. That's the moment I transmitted her a single text message. Your things are packed. They will be on the curb outside the building at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. A truck is scheduled to haul away any abandoned property at 12:05 p.m. Be there or don't. It makes no difference to me whatsoever. Then I blocked her number completely. The following morning, at precisely 8 a.m., I commenced hauling the bags down via the service elevator. 4 trips it required. I constructed them into a pile on the sidewalk, a small mountain of black plastic that represented 2 years of my life. I returned upstairs and observed from my window. Shortly after 9, a car pulled up to the curb. Megan, her best friend, another person I'd never genuinely trusted, was driving. Grace emerged from the passenger seat. She appeared as though she hadn't slept whatsoever. They both stared at the mountain of trash bags with visible horror. Nearly an hour it consumed them to load everything into Megan's small SUV, a process involving considerable, angry shoving and muttered curses. As they drove away into the distance, I felt nothing. No sadness, no regret, just emptiness. The real war, naturally, commenced a few days later. The narrative she and Megan began circulating was a masterpiece of pure fiction. In their manufactured version, I was the monster. I had been displaying jealous and controlling behavior for months. I had somehow tracked her down to her friend's apartment, where she was staying to gain some space from me, and then I had materialized in a violent rage, assaulted her physically, and ejected her with nothing but the clothes on her back. I started receiving texts from mutual friends requesting my side of the story. I understood a simple denial wouldn't suffice. I required proof, and then, like some gift descended from the heavens, I received a text from an unknown number. Alex. His text was concise and direct. Hey man, it's Alex. I'm sorry about all this. Grace is insane. She's been telling people you attacked us both. That's a lie, and you know it. I have all the texts from her from the last few months, where she was telling me she was single and that her crazy ex was harassing her. If you need me to back you up, I will. This woman is toxic. That was it. That was my silver bullet. I captured a screenshot of his text. I forwarded it, accompanied by a simple, one-sentence explanation of my own to our entire, collective group of mutual friends. For anyone who has heard Grace's story, here is the guy she was with in his own words. She lied to everyone. The social dynamic shifted almost instantaneously. The questions ceased. The accusations transformed into messages of support directed toward me. Grace's smear campaign had been utterly torpedoed by the one person she desperately needed to corroborate her story. But she wasn't finished. Her family inserted themselves into the situation. Her mother called me, screaming about how I had abandoned her daughter in her time of desperate need. I listened to her for approximately 30 seconds before I severed her off. I didn't yell. I just allowed her to hear the ice crystallizing in my words. Your daughter is a liar and a cheat. She's fortunate all I did was throw her belongings on the curb. You should concern yourself more with the character of the person you raised. Do not call me again. I disconnected. The following day I received a voicemail from her father, rambling, furious, and vaguely threatening in nature. He articulated things like, "You'll regret this, and you don't know who you're messing with." I felt no threat whatsoever. I simply felt exhausted by it all. I preserved the voicemail, The final act of her desperation materialized a week later. I worked from home 2 days weekly, and I had this massive project deadline with a major client looming. The night preceding its due date, my internet connection died, just completely dead. I reset the router, inspected the cables. Nothing worked. I contacted my internet provider, and after 45 agonizing minutes on hold, they revealed something that made my blood run ice cold. 0 outages existed in my area. My service had been cancelled that very afternoon. When I demanded to know who had authorized the cancellation, they informed me it was executed online utilizing the account holder's security information. Security information that Grace, as an authorized user on my account, had possessed. I had changed all the primary passwords, but I had overlooked the stupid internet account. She had orchestrated it deliberately, a calculated act of sabotage designed to interfere with my job. I managed to complete my project by utilizing my phone as a hotspot, but I was absolutely seething. This had crossed the line from a messy breakup into active, malicious harassment. I knew precisely where she was staying. A friend had mentioned she was crashing on Megan's couch. The next morning I drove over there. I pounded on the door until Megan opened it, appearing startled. Grace was positioned behind her, a look of smug satisfaction adorning her face that rapidly vanished when she witnessed the expression on mine. I was so enraged I was physically shaking. "This stops now," I declared. I raised my phone and played her father's threatening voicemail. Their eyes expanded wide. Then last night, my internet was mysteriously cancelled the night before a major work deadline. An act of sabotage that could have obliterated my job. I advanced a step forward, and they both instinctively retreated a step backward. Here's what's going to happen. You, your friends, and your family are going to leave me alone forever. If I receive one more phone call, one more text, or if so much as my Netflix account gets mysteriously logged out, I am taking this voicemail along with the phone records of your harassment and a sworn statement regarding the internet sabotage, and I am proceeding to the police to file for a restraining order. Do you understand me?" They both stood there, pale, utterly silent. The reality of legal consequences was something they clearly hadn't considered. Grace attempted one final time, her voice fracturing, the tears beginning to form. "But Jake, I made a mistake. What about us?" I simply looked at her, the woman I had once loved, and felt nothing but pity and disgust. "There is no us," I stated. "You incinerated that idea when you packed your bags for a fake business trip." I rotated around and walked away without another word. I climbed into my car and drove home. I blocked her number, Megan's number, and the numbers belonging to her parents. I sat in my quiet, clean apartment, the silence a welcome, blessed relief. I poured myself a drink and deleted every single picture I possessed of her. It was finally, mercifully over.